There was a time when the name Billy the Kid sent shivers down the spines of men across the West. Not only was he one of the most infamous outlaws of the Wild West, but his reputation struck fear into the hearts of lawmen and settlers alike. His bad reputation was built through gunfights, robberies, and daring escapes. He became notorious for ruthlessly outmaneuvering the law, defying authorities, and treating every encounter as if it was a deadly duel. Because of his violent ways and outlaw status, Billy made many enemies. His life was filled with bitter feuds, deadly rivalries, and even fierce confrontations with sheriffs and bounty hunters. But before he became the infamous outlaw, Billy the Kid was at the very bottom of society. His story is one of the few where someone rises from an orphaned, impoverished youth to one of the most feared men of the frontier. Billy's story is at times thrilling and at times terrifying. It's an example of what happens when a restless spirit refuses to be tamed. So let me take you back to 1859, the year young Billy was born, setting the stage for a life steeped in legend and lore. Our story begins in Ireland, specifically in 1845, when a devastating epidemic struck the crops, particularly potatoes, which were the main food source for the general public at that time. This epidemic led to a severe food shortage, causing a famine that resulted in the deaths of over 1 million Irish people, an event historically known as the Irish Potato Famine. During this time, Patrick McCarthy decides to escape the dire conditions in Ireland, taking his wife Catherine with him to emigrate to the United States, which was welcoming European immigrants. They arrive in New York and settle on Manhattan Island. In 1859, Patrick and Catherine are blessed with a son, Henry, who will become the hero of our story, later known as Billy the Kid. However, a few months later, while Billy is still an infant, his father Patrick passes away. Following his death, Catherine and Henry move to Silver City, New Mexico, where she meets William Antrim, a miner, and they marry in 1873. Life goes on until Billy turns 15, when his mother, Catherine, falls ill with tuberculosis and dies in 1874. At this point, William Antrim shows no interest in raising his deceased wife's son, so he leaves Silver City immediately after her death. Billy, now an orphan at 15 and without any source of income, finds himself in a dangerous environment known for its violence and crime, with no option but to rely on himself. Billy gets a job washing dishes in a bar until he meets a teenager named Sombrero Jack, who works at a Chinese laundromat. Jack convinces Billy that they could make more money by stealing clothes. The two steal items from the laundromat and hide them in Billy's room. However, Billy's landlord discovers the stolen goods and reports them to the police. Jack manages to escape, but Billy is arrested. When the police officer sees that Billy is still a teenager, he decides to lock him in a cell for 2 days to scare him, then releases him. While in custody, Billy asks the guard to let him out of the cell to stretch his legs. The guard, believing the doors are locked and that there's no chance of escape, opens the door. Billy seizes the opportunity, slips into the chimney and climbs out, successfully escaping. Billy leaves Silver City and walks until he reaches Arizona. Along the way, he finds a labor camp called Camp Grant, which needs workers. Billy gets a job loading and transporting wood. Over time, he meets some individuals involved in criminal activities and joins them in horse theft, working during the day and stealing horses at night, improving his financial situation. He buys a gun and a rifle for the first time and begins practicing with them, discovering a natural talent for shooting accurately. One day, while in a bar, he is bullied by a man named Frank Cahill. After a verbal exchange, Frank violently attacks Billy. In self-defense, Billy manages to draw his gun and shoots Frank, killing him instantly. Panicked, Billy escapes on the first horse he sees, riding until he crosses the Arizona state line and continues to Lincoln, New Mexico, where he decides to start fresh, changing his name to William H. Bonney. At this time, Lincoln is known for its large cattle ranches. The most notable figure in the town is wealthy businessman Lawrence Murphy, who has bought large tracts of land to turn into cattle ranches. He partners with businessman James Dolan, and together they establish a company called The House, securing substantial contracts with the US government to supply beef to army camps. Eventually, a young English businessman named John Tunstall arrives in Lincoln to invest in cattle ranching. He partners with lawyer Alexander Maxwell to create a large ranch, leading to competition with The House. Billy starts his new life in Lincoln, initially by attempting horse theft again. He breaks into one of the ranches but is caught by the guards and handed over to the police. The ranch he tried to rob belongs to John Tunstall. The next day, Tunstall comes to the police station to give his testimony as the ranch owner. Upon seeing Billy, he decides to forgive him and drops the theft charges, even offering him a job on his ranch. Billy accepts immediately, grateful to Tunstall for sparing him and giving him a chance for a normal life. Meanwhile, Lawrence Murphy and James Dolan are furious about Tunstall's competition. Murphy offers to buy Tunstall's ranch, but Tunstall refuses. Frustrated, Murphy decides to eliminate Tunstall. He enlists corrupt Sheriff William Brady, who secretly works for him. Murphy issues a fake court order to seize all the cattle from Tunstall's ranch and goes to enforce it with armed men. Tunstall insists there's a mistake and that he has no legal issues. Brady invites Tunstall to the police station for questioning. Trusting their intentions, Tunstall accompanies them. But on the way, one of Brady's associates shoots him dead in cold blood. After finding Tunstall's body, Billy and the ranch workers are filled with rage and vow to avenge their boss's murder. They form a group known as the Regulators, whose mission is to take revenge on all those involved in Tunstall's death, particularly Sheriff Brady and the House. The Regulators ambush Brady, killing him and his accompanying soldiers. After several days, a new sheriff is appointed in Lincoln, who sends a group of soldiers to eliminate the Regulators. Anticipating the attack, the Regulators are well prepared, and during the assault, 2 police officers are killed, forcing the rest to retreat. Lawrence Murphy seeks military assistance, and Colonel Nathan Dudley leads a battalion of soldiers to Lincoln. Around 60 Regulators are gathered in a house owned by lawyer Alexander Maxwell when the army assaults them. A bloody battle ensues, resulting in Maxwell's death and many Regulators falling. However, Billy manages to escape with a few others, marking the end of what became known as the Lincoln County War. After the Lincoln County War, Pat Garrett is appointed sheriff of Lincoln, determined to eliminate the Regulators. He sends spies to gather information and locate their hideouts. Most surviving Regulators decide to leave New Mexico, while Billy chooses to remain, working on a ranch at Fort Sumner, just 100 kilometers from Lincoln. This proximity makes it easier for Pat Garrett to locate Billy, and he successfully corners him. Billy is arrested and put on trial for the murder of former Sheriff William Brady, resulting in a death sentence by hanging. While in custody, 2 guards are assigned to him. One of Billy's friends manages to hide a gun in the jail bathroom. Billy asks a guard to let him use the bathroom, retrieves the gun, and shoots the first guard. The second guard, outside, hears the gunfire and assumes Billy has killed his colleague. When he approaches, Billy shot him and killed him, then he managed to escape. Billy's killing of the guards makes him the most wanted outlaw in New Mexico. Pat Garrett places a $500 bounty on Billy's head, leading to wanted posters spreading throughout Lincoln, meaning any citizen can kill him for the reward. However, 3 months after his escape, Pat Garrett discovers Billy's hiding place after receiving a tip. On July 14th, 1881, he raids the house where Billy is hiding in the middle of the night with 2 of his men. Billy wakes during the raid and draws his gun, but hesitates due to the darkness. Pat Garrett shoots him twice, killing him instantly. Billy the Kid dies at the age of 21. After his death, Pat Garrett writes a book about Billy's life, which cements his status as one of the most famous outlaws in American history.